Our next speaker is going to be representing the Indigenous Environmental Network. There are a lot of tribal communities that are affected by the current pipeline and some of the proposed pipelines. So Marty is going to talk about how it's affecting your community and what we can do to help stop it.
Thanks, Jen. My name is Marty Cobenais. I work with the Indigenous Environmental Network. I am a Red Lake enrollee, and I'm originally from Bemidji, Minnesota. That's where my offices are. That's where I drove from yesterday, too. Coincidentally, if you want to go on. This is what we're looking at. This is an actual picture of the dirty tar sands. It's pretty simple. Looks ugly. Go ahead. I'm going to go flying through this too. This is where we're at. I think everyone else has kind of already covered that, where the tar sands are at. Go ahead. Actual size. The government has just come out saying that it is 140 square kilometers, or 54,000 square miles. Some people say it's bigger in England and Wales combined. But then when you compare it to the states on the U.S., it is actually a little bit smaller than the state of New York, which is the 27th largest state in the United States. So there's still, 20-some states that are smaller than this. So this is bigger than 27 or 26 states. Go ahead. How is it obtained? I'm going to try to just flash through most of this stuff since Paul's already covered most of this stuff. Go ahead. Go ahead. All right, tailing ponds. This is what I want to talk about. Right now they say that there are 42,000 acres of tailing ponds in Alberta right now. Actual size of that is 170 square kilometers or 66 square miles. Just to put this in perspective, this city that we're in right now, the city of Lincoln, Nebraska, is 74 square miles. That's how big the tailing ponds are. That's just in mass area. These are deep. Too. Most of them are 300 feet deep. So it's not just like surface water where it's 2 or 3 feet deep. This is deep stuff. And the Environmental Defense Canada report says 11 million liters leak per day at the tar sands. That equals out to 2.9 million gallons per day are leaking out of the tailing ponds. That makes the BP oil spill look like a mud puddle. Go ahead. I like this one. This is actually one that came out probably about 2 years ago, and I could actually see my daughter asking me this question. But yeah, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Obviously Hillary Clinton. I think that actually came out when the Alberta Clipper came through northern Minnesota, was when this editorial came out. And Secretary Clinton did sign off on that one, even though it was basically commissioned by President Bush. Some of the safety concerns that we have. Life cycle. How long can a pipeline be used? In northern Minnesota, we have pipelines that are over 60 years old. They were put in 1949. They don't have obviously the same regulations as they do now. When you go through a lot of the swamps in Minnesota, you actually see exposed pipeline. They're just laid on top of the pipe, on top of the ground, and covered up with dirt. Others of them, when they went through lakes, they didn't go around them or dig under them like they are supposedly doing now. In the lake of Cass Lake, it is actually laid on the bottom of the lake. They did it. They just weighted it down and laid it on the bottom of the lake. If you ever get a chance and go Google Earth or whatever, you can actually see where the pipeline goes through Cass Lake, and it's pretty cool. Well, not really, but if you want to go back, actually. Smart pigging. What that is the companies will say that they have all the technology in the world and that the pipelines are safe, and because they send this little smart pig through the lines, and they x-ray the pipes to see if there's any cracks or rust or anything else like that that's going on. The problem with that is that according to regulations, they only have to do it once every 2 years. So I don't know if any of you guys are engineers or anything else like that, but I'm not, and I kind of know that rust kind of happens more than just once every 2 years. And it can be a big rust spot in 2 years. A lot of the pipelines are saying, like the Enbridge pipeline up in northern Minnesota, they say that they do it once a year. Unfortunately, in one of the pictures showing that I'll show you guys later on, is that last summer they did the smart pig through one of the lines that's 60 years old. They found a flaw. They marked it. They didn't go out and check it. That ended up leaking this spring, and it ended up being noticed by a forest fire. Had a forest fire there. It lit the oil on fire, and then that's how people even noticed that there's even a leak there. It was just kind of from a 1-inch crack in the pipe. Pipeline abandonment. This is a big question. I went to 4 public hearings on for the Keystone XL. 1 in Atkinson, Nebraska, 2 in South Dakota, and 1 in Washington, D.C. just recently. And in the 3 meetings in Nebraska and South Dakota, pipeline abandonment was a major issue in every one. And all the farmers and everyone else that were there asked, what's going to happen with the pipe when it's done? And because it's not really addressed in the draft EIS, it just says they're going to follow Pipeline Safety Standard Administration rules. Their Pipeline Safety Standard Administration says they are going to purge the lines, fill them with nitrogen or water or some other non-toxic substance and leave them in the ground. So as a Native American, I sit and look and say, seven generations from now, what's that going to do to that generation? What that tells me is that we're going to have basically Superfund sites crisscrossing the United States because there won't be any oil going through them anymore. They'll have already used that. So they'll just be rust buckets. And we'll end up having sinkholes and everything else going through them all. Go ahead. This is interesting. This is a picture in Bemidji, Minnesota, Highway 2. If you look on the other side of the highway, you can see a little machine kind of in the ditch. That is the horizontal bore that they drill underneath roads and underneath rivers. Okay. The next day, and I mean the next day, Highway 2 collapsed. And they said, oh my goodness, that's just really strange. It never happened before. It's an accident. Obviously. We lost that one. Okay. Go ahead. This is a picture of the pipe that I talked about earlier in Deer River, Minnesota this spring. It is an exposed pipe. Basically on the outside is asphalt, kind of like a shingle. Because it was exposed to open conditions, they had to wrap it or else it would have rusted even faster. That is what is burned off. That is what you basically see on the side of the pipe, is the asphalt. Go ahead. This is the spill site. If you look way down on the far left-hand side corner, where you see a kind of a machine down there, that is where the 1-inch pipe is. And all the white stuff that you see is not snow. I know you think of Minnesota and snow. That is actually water covered with diapers type material. That is what they use to soak up the oil in these type of spills. Coincidentally, right now, they're still having, with the Gulf Coast and everything else like that, they're trying to say they're going to put peat moss in the ocean and absorb the oil. And they showed that it worked. The oil absorbed to it. Problem here is that it's peat moss here, and it absorbed to the oil. So now when they're trying to dig it out, it just drips out of the peat moss when they dig it out, and it sucks into the more peat moss. So they're having a heck of a time trying to get it out of the water. Go ahead. This is a close-up of one of what I call the diaper. It's actually
it's a dirty diaper.
Yeah, it's a very dirty diaper. It's quite the phenomenon, actually, because it only picks up water, or the oil. It doesn't pick up water. So when and how they do it is kind of funny. I have a video of it. A guy stands there with a pitchfork and basically flops all these into a garbage can. That's how they clean it up.